Have you ever wondered whether your cat is only hearing sounds, not actually understanding what you say? A lot of people assume dogs are the ones who truly understand human words, while cats only react when they feel like it. But science has been painting a different picture. Cats may not respond the way dogs do, and they may not obey on command, but that does not mean human words are meaningless to them. Research suggests that cats can recognize their own names, notice the familiar voice of their owner, respond differently when humans speak directly to them, and learn to connect certain sounds with familiar situations. And that is what makes this so moving. Your cat may have understood more than you ever realized. Not in the same way a human understands language, but in a way that still matters deeply. Through the words they hear every day. Through sounds linked to food, attention, comfort, safety, and affection. So in this video, we are going to explore 5 familiar words your cat may understand in its own unique way, based on what science supports most strongly right now. But before we begin, one thing matters. When we say a cat understands a word, we do not mean it understands language like a person understands grammar or definitions. What we really mean is something simpler and more beautiful. A cat learns that a familiar sound carries a familiar meaning in its life. And the 5 words in this video are some of the clearest examples. First, your cat's name. If there is one word science supports most strongly, it is this one. In 2019, a study published in Scientific Reports found that domestic cats can distinguish their own names from other words with a similar length and rhythm. What makes this finding so interesting is that cats do not always respond in dramatic ways. Many of them do not come running. They may simply flick an ear, lift their head, shift their eyes, or move the tip of their tail. Small reactions like these may seem easy to miss, but they matter. They suggest that your cat noticed something important. It recognized a sound that belongs to its life, and that changes the way we should interpret those quiet moments at home. When you call your cat, and it does not walk over to you, it is easy to assume it does not understand. But that is not what the evidence suggests. More often, the truth is much more cat-like. Your cat may understand perfectly well and still decide not to respond in the way you hoped. Understanding is not the same as obedience. That difference matters because many people judge cats by dog standards, and in doing so, they miss what cats are actually communicating. A cat is not always asking, "How do I please you?" Very often, it is asking, "Is this worth my energy? Is this safe? Is this familiar? Do I want to engage right now?" That is why the meaning of a name can become deeper than we realize. Over time, your cat's name stops being just a sound. It becomes a signal wrapped in memory. It may mean food is coming. It may mean your hand is reaching out gently. It may mean you just came home. It may mean comfort, routine, attention, or the simple reassurance that the person it knows is nearby. In that way, your cat's name becomes part of a shared emotional world between the two of you. And there is something quietly beautiful about that, because every time you say your cat's name with warmth, patience, and familiarity, you are reinforcing more than recognition. You are shaping what that sound feels like. You are teaching your cat whether its name predicts comfort or stress, safety or tension, connection or discomfort. That is why consistency matters so much. Try to say your cat's name in the same way each day, with a steady tone, especially during positive moments. Use it when you are offering food, inviting closeness, speaking gently, or beginning a calm interaction. Try not to save your cat's name only for moments when something unpleasant is about to happen, like a bath, a nail trim, medicine, or being carried into a crate. If a name is repeatedly followed by stress, your cat may still recognize it, but the feeling attached to it can begin to change. And once that happens, the word may still be understood, but not in the way you want. So if you have ever felt a little hurt because your cat looked at you when you called its name, then deliberately stayed where it was. Do not rush to believe that nothing got through. In many cases, something did. Your cat heard you. Your cat recognized you. Your cat simply answered in the quiet, independent language that cats have always used. And sometimes, the smallest response is still a real one. Second, the words "come here." Of course, in real life, this may not always sound exactly like "come here." In your home, it might be "come on," "over here," "where are you," or some soft nickname only the two of you understand. But the meaning is the same. It is the familiar call your cat hears again and again from your voice. And that part matters more than many people realize. Research suggests that cats do not only respond to sounds themselves, they also recognize who the sound belongs to. A 2021 study published in PLOS ONE found evidence that cats seem to form a mental representation of their owner based on voice alone. When cats heard their owner's voice coming from one location and then suddenly from another impossible location, many reacted with clear surprise. That suggests something important. Your cat is not just hearing noise. Your cat is keeping track of you. So when you say "come here," your cat is not hearing a random command floating through the room. It is hearing a familiar person reaching toward it through sound. That is why this phrase can carry much more emotional meaning than it appears to on the surface. If your call usually leads to something pleasant, your cat starts building an association. Maybe you sit down and make space beside you. Maybe you open the bedroom door. Maybe you kneel to pet them softly. Maybe you pick up the wand toy they love. Over time, those two small words stop being just a cue. They become a bridge, a signal that says, something safe or rewarding may happen now. And that helps explain something many cat owners quietly notice, but do not always understand. Sometimes a cat will ignore the exact same words from one person, then respond immediately when those words come from someone else. It is easy to think the cat is being stubborn or selective for no reason. But from the cat's point of view, the difference is not small at all. The voice changes everything. The history behind that voice changes everything. The emotional memory attached to that voice changes everything. To your cat, "come here" is not only about the phrase itself, it is also about trust. Is this the voice that usually respects my space? Is this the person who reaches gently? Is this a call that leads to comfort, or one that ends with me being grabbed, restrained, or annoyed? Cats are always paying attention to patterns like that. So if you want your cat to respond better to a familiar call, consistency matters. Use the same phrase often. Say it in a calm tone. Most importantly, let it lead to experiences your cat can predict and feel good about. If "come here" usually ends in something your cat dislikes, your cat may still understand the words perfectly and choose not to come anyway. That does not mean the communication failed. In a strange way, it means the communication worked very well. Your cat learned what those words tend to mean and then made a decision based on that memory. And maybe that is the deeper lesson here. When your cat responds to a familiar call, it is not just obeying. It is revealing how it feels about what usually happens next. Every response is shaped by memory. Every hesitation tells a story. Every small step toward you carries a quiet kind of trust. So if your cat comes when you call, even slowly, even cautiously, that moment may mean more than it seems. It may mean your voice has become a place your cat feels safe moving toward. Third, the word food. If you have ever whispered, "want to eat," and watched your cat lift its head from another room almost instantly, You were not imagining it. This is one of the clearest examples of how a word can become powerful in a cat's world. Not because cats necessarily understand food the way a person understands a dictionary definition, but because they are very good at learning what certain sounds reliably predict. And in everyday life, very few things are learned faster than the sounds connected to eating. That is what makes this word so important. Science does not say that every cat understands food as a human concept, but research does suggest that cats can form links between a sound and an outcome, especially when that outcome matters to them. And few outcomes matter more to a cat than the arrival of a meal, a favorite treat, or the familiar ritual that happens just before eating. A 2024 study published in Scientific Reports added something especially interesting to this conversation. It suggested that cats may be able to form rapid associations between a novel word and a novel image under certain conditions. That does not mean cats are sitting around building vocabulary lists in their heads, but it does mean they may be more attentive to human speech than many people once assumed. They are not simply hearing noise. They are noticing patterns, storing them, and learning what those patterns lead to. And food gives them one of the strongest reasons in the world to do exactly that. Think about how often the same little sequence happens in your home. Maybe you say, dinner. Maybe you say, treat. Maybe you shake the bag. Maybe you open a drawer, touch a bowl, peel back a lid, or walk toward the kitchen in a certain way. To you, these may feel like tiny routine moments. To your cat, they can become part of a very precise prediction. Something good is about to happen. That is why the word itself is often only one part of the signal. Your cat may be responding to the sound of food, but also to your tone, your footsteps, the time of day, the rustle of packaging, or the familiar rhythm of your body moving toward the feeding area. Over time, all of these things gather around the word and make it stronger. So by the time you softly ask, "Want to eat?" your cat may already be halfway into the emotional experience of anticipation. And that anticipation matters, because food words do not just trigger hunger. They can also trigger excitement, hope, comfort, and routine. For many cats, mealtime is not only about calories. It is one of the most predictable and reassuring parts of the day. It is a moment when the world makes sense. A familiar voice says a familiar word, and something needed arrives. That kind of consistency can feel deeply stabilizing, especially for animals who depend on patterns to feel secure. Which means this word carries more trust than it seems to. If you repeatedly use a food word and then break the promise attached to it, your cat notices. If food suddenly means being grabbed, medicated, locked in a carrier, or taken somewhere frightening, the emotional meaning of that word can begin to change. Your cat may still understand it, but the feeling underneath it may no longer be simple excitement. It may become hesitation, suspicion, even stress. That is why honesty matters here more than people realize. If you want to use food words to strengthen your bond, keep them reliable. Let them mean what they usually mean. Let them lead to something your cat can trust. Because every time the prediction comes true, you are reinforcing more than just a feeding routine. You are reinforcing the idea that your voice is dependable. And that can matter just as much as the meal itself. If this video is helping you see your cat in a new way, take a second to like and subscribe. Because the next word on this list is one that many people say all the time, often without realizing how much emotional weight it can carry for a cat. So yes, your cat may not understand the word food the way you do, but your cat may understand something just as meaningful. This sound means something important is coming. This sound belongs to a pattern I know. This sound has become part of how I survive, how I hope, and how I trust. And once a word reaches that level, It is no longer just a word. It becomes a promise. Fourth, the word no. This may be one of the most common words people say to cats, and also one of the most misunderstood. Because when most people say no, what they really mean is, stop that, do not jump there, do not scratch this, do not bite me, do not do what you are doing right now. The word feels simple to us, but to a cat, it only becomes meaningful if it is used in a way the cat can actually learn from. And that is where many people go wrong. Cats can learn that a sound like no, stop, or a short interruption sound means a behavior is about to be blocked. But they do not learn this best through long lectures, loud scolding, or emotional explosions. They learn it best when the signal is brief, consistent, and immediately followed by a clear change in what happens next. That matters because cats are not only listening to the word itself, they are also reading your entire state. Research suggests that cats are sensitive to human social and emotional cues. A 2020 study published in Animals found that cats can use both visual and vocal information to distinguish emotional signals in humans and other cats. In other words, when you say no, your cat may be processing much more than that single sound. It may be reading your face, your posture, your movement, the tension in your voice, and the emotional charge in the room all at once. So if no always arrives with a sudden looming body, a sharp voice, angry footsteps, and unpredictable hands, your cat may not mainly learn, do not scratch the couch. Your cat may learn something much sadder. When my human sounds like this, I am not safe. And that changes everything. Because once fear enters the lesson, the word stops being a guide and starts becoming a warning signal attached to you. That does not create real understanding. It creates stress. A cat that freezes, runs, flattens its ears, flicks its tail hard, or avoids you after hearing no is still learning something. But it may not be learning the boundary you intended. It may simply be learning to brace itself for your frustration. And over time, that can quietly damage trust, even if the cat appears to stop the behavior in the moment. So what works better? A calm, short interruption. A predictable redirection. A better option offered immediately. If your cat scratches the sofa, no should not be the whole lesson. The real lesson is, not here, scratch this instead. If your cat jumps onto the counter, no should not just end in removal and annoyance. It should lead to a more appropriate place to climb, perch, or explore. Cats do much better when they are not only being told what to stop, but also shown where their natural behavior can safely go. That is especially important because many behaviors people punish are not acts of defiance at all. They are normal cat behaviors with nowhere appropriate to land. Scratching, climbing, biting during overstimulation, knocking things over out of curiosity, jumping toward food, these often come from instinct, energy, stress, or unmet needs, not from a desire to misbehave. So if you want the word no to mean something useful, it has to be fair. It has to come at the right moment. It has to sound similar each time. It has to stay emotionally controlled. And it has to be followed by a path your cat can actually succeed with. That is how a boundary becomes understandable instead of frightening. And maybe that is the deeper emotional truth inside this word. No can either teach a cat where safety ends, or make a cat feel that safety has disappeared. The difference often comes down to your tone, your timing, and whether you help your cat recover from the moment instead of leaving it stranded inside your frustration. So yes, your cat may understand no, but what your cat understands depends a great deal on how you use it. If you use it with clarity, calmness, and guidance, it can become a clean, reliable boundary. If you use it with anger, intensity, and unpredictability, it can become something much heavier. And cats remember that weight. Fifth, the words, I love you. This may be the part that surprises people most, because on the surface, it sounds almost too human, too emotional, maybe even a little sentimental. Can a cat really understand something as soft and intimate as I love you? If we mean understand it the way a person understands language, then we cannot honestly say that. A cat is not translating the phrase into a human concept of love. It is not parsing each word and reflecting on its abstract meaning. But if we ask a different question, the answer becomes much more interesting. Can a cat learn that these words carry warmth, safety, tenderness, and connection? Very likely, yes. And that is because words like I love you rarely arrive alone. They usually come wrapped in a whole emotional atmosphere. Your voice becomes softer, your pace slows down, your face relaxes, your hands become gentler, your body stops feeling demanding and starts feeling safe. In moments like that, the phrase is not just a phrase, it becomes part of an experience. Research on cat-directed speech suggests that cats respond differently when humans speak directly to them, especially when that voice belongs to their owner. That matters because it tells us that a cat may be listening to much more than vocabulary. It may be listening to emotional texture, to rhythm, to tone, to the difference between being addressed and simply being near human noise. And that helps explain something many cat owners have felt without always knowing how to describe it. There are moments when you say, I love you to your cat, and something in its body changes. The shoulders soften. The eyes narrow slowly. The tail becomes still. The cat leans in, stays where it is, or settles more deeply into your lap or beside your leg. None of that proves your cat understands love as a word, but it may show that your cat understands what kind of moment this is. A safe one, a gentle one, a moment where nothing is being demanded, a moment where closeness is allowed to simply exist. And for a cat, that kind of understanding is not small at all. In fact, it may be one of the deepest kinds of understanding a relationship can hold. Because many cats do not bond through dramatic displays. They bond through repeated emotional patterns, through the lap that is always warm, through the hand that knows when to stop, through the voice that gets softer instead of louder, through the familiar phrase that always arrives in moments of calm affection. Over time, I love you can become less like language and more like emotional music. Your cat may not decode it intellectually, but it may recognize exactly how it feels. And feelings shape trust. That is why these words can matter, even if your cat never comes running when you say them. The meaning may show up somewhere quieter, in the way your cat rests near you after hearing your voice, in the way it slow blinks instead of scanning the room, in the way it stays vulnerable around you, stretches out, exposes its side, or falls asleep without leaving. Those are not small things. For a cat, they are forms of belief. They say, I do not just know your voice. I know what your presence feels like. I know what usually happens when you sound like this. I know I can stay. And maybe that is the real heart of this entire video. Your cat may not understand words in the way humans wish it did, but it may understand the emotional life inside those words more than we expect. Name, come here, food, no. I love you. Each one becomes meaningful not only because of sound, but because of the repeated human experience attached to it. So do not be embarrassed to say loving things to your cat. Say them softly. Say them often. Say them in moments that are calm and real. Because even if your cat does not understand the sentence the way you do, it may still understand something beautiful inside it. That when your voice sounds like this, the world is safe. That when your hands move like this, nothing bad is about to happen. That when you look at it this way, it is seen, welcomed, and at peace. And sometimes that may be the closest thing to being understood that any living creature really needs. And maybe that is the clearest truth these 5 words leave behind. This is not really a story about cats learning human language the way we do. It is something quieter, and in some ways more touching than that. Cats watch, cats remember. Cats connect familiar sounds to familiar experiences. And over time, those sounds stop being random noise. They become part of how a cat measures the world around it. That is what gives your voice so much power. Not power in the sense of control, not power in the sense of making a cat obey, but power in the sense of emotional meaning. Your words can become signals of food, safety, boundaries, comfort, attention, and love. And once that happens, your cat is no longer just hearing you. It is learning what your voice predicts. It is learning whether your presence brings calm or tension. It is learning whether the sounds that come from you can be trusted. That is why this matters more than it may seem at first. Because the real question is not whether your cat can pass some imaginary language test. The real question is what kind of emotional world your words are building, day after day, inside your cat's life. So no, these 5 words are not proof that your cat speaks human language, but they may be proof of something far more beautiful. They may be proof that your cat is listening more closely than you think. Proof that your cat remembers more than you realize. Proof that your cat is quietly building a map of trust out of the sounds you repeat every day. Your cat learns its name. It learns the call that invites it closer. It learns the word that promises food. It learns the sound that marks a boundary. And it learns the softness in the words that mean love, even if not in the way humans define it. And with every repetition, those sounds gather meaning. With every gentle moment, they gather warmth. With every predictable pattern, they gather trust. So maybe the question worth carrying with you after this video is not, how many words does my cat understand? Maybe the better question is this: when my cat hears my voice every day, does it hear safety? Does it hear patience? Does it hear a world that feels gentle and dependable? Because in the end, that may matter more than vocabulary ever could. And if your cat has ever looked at you when you spoke, flicked an ear at the sound of its name, walked toward you when you called, waited by the kitchen when you whispered about food, paused at a boundary, or softened when you spoke with love, then maybe you have already seen the answer. Not in a dramatic way, not in a human way, but in the quiet, honest language cats have been speaking all along. If this video made you see your cat a little differently, subscribe to the channel and share your story in the comments. What is one word your cat seems to understand every single time?